See if there was any faults showing us why the steering lock stayed on. And this is where disaster struck.
Like, we've had it come off before, I'm sure we have. But I thought... Whoa! Ow! Oh my god! Dude! Oh, that was on my head!
You okay?
The curtain airbags deployed.
Are you okay?
Yeah. What the hell? What the hell has happened there?
I have never had this happen before. Both side airbags completely blew for no reason.
So flipping loud.
I've never had that happen before. What the hell?
Why has he done that?
I've never had that happen before. That is like the scariest thing.
Dude, I don't even know what happened.
So if you check that video very carefully, you will notice that the two-side curtain airbag of that vehicle actually deployed because of a single mistake. So what he actually did was, he took this SRS module, that is called the supplementary restraint module. That module actually controls the airbag, the seat belt, you know, it has to do with safety of the occupants in the vehicle. So he actually took that module and flipped it over. That is where the mistake comes in. That is why the two-side airbag actually deployed. So what makes them deployed? Let's just discuss that. So the moment he took the module and flipped it over, the car actually thinks the vehicle was involved in a roll, because as they flip it over, there's something in that module. There's a sensor in that module that is called a yaw rate sensor. So what that sensor actually does is basically this yaw rate sensor weight function in a car, because it's used both in ships, it's used in airplanes, but for in a car, what it actually does is it monitors the vehicle rotation around its vertical axis. This is your vertical axis. So any rotation around that vertical axis is what that yaw rate sensor monitors. So the moment it took the module and flip it around, so what the car thinks is that the car is standing at a spot and all of a sudden something happened and the car flipped. It actually thinks the whole car flips around, not hitting an object, just flipped. So once it sees that the car flipped, what the best safety features it can bring up at that point in time is to bring out the two-side curtain airbags to prevent the passenger from actually hitting their head on the pillars, you understand? So that is the best safety features it could do at that point in time. That's why if you notice from that video, it didn't bring out the steering airbag and it didn't bring out the passenger airbag at the front. So it only brought out the two-side curtain airbags to prevent them from hitting their head on the pillars. So basically, that particular module should never be tampered with the car on or the ignition on. You should not have any business with that module. It should be bolted down on the chassis of that vehicle. You should never, whether it's an old vehicle, whether it's a new vehicle, it should never be touched with the car on and it's plugged in. It should never be touched, or else this is what will surely happen. The only case where you are not going to have a deployment of any airbag with the module loosed out is if the module itself is faulty, or there have been an occurrence of a crash on that particular vehicle before. Because once there's an occurrence of crash on that vehicle before, the airbag lights will be on permanently. And in that case, if you take out the module, flip it anyhow you like, it's not going to deploy any airbag. So actually, this vehicle that this guy was working on has actually had a crash. The airbag has deployed. So if you look at the video, you should be wondering now, why did it deploy again? Actually, what the guy had done is they hacked into the module itself. They cleared the crash data on that module, and actually that is not legal. You are not supposed to do that. Once there's a crash, you're supposed to take the module out of the car, get a brand new module and install. At least I know in America it's not legal for you to actually do that. Maybe some other countries might legalize it, but legally you are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to get a brand new module and install on the vehicle. So from all of this, you might be wondering that why is it just the two-side curtain airbags that deployed in that video? At least you'll be wondering, you have an airbag on the steering wheel in front of the driver, you have another airbag on the dashboard in front of the front passenger. So why is it that it's just the two-side airbags that deploy? So basically, why that happened is that you have some sensors actually that also monitors or senses when there's an impact along the front chassis of the vehicle, around the front chassis of the vehicle. There are some sensors, they call them impact sensors. So when there's an impact, they can send a signal down to that same SRS module to deploy the front airbags, both the one on the steering wheel and the one in front of the front passenger. Depending on how severe the impact is, it can be so serious that it will deploy both the front airbags and also the side cutting airbag. It can decide to deploy the whole airbag in that vehicle. It depends on the event. These things are algorithms or programs that have been written to act depending on some certain parameters. You understand? So why those front airbags didn't deploy is because those impact sensors were fine. They didn't sense any impact. So in the case of if it was just a collision and no roll, the car didn't roll. If it was just a collision, what you will notice is the steering airbag might deploy. Also, the front passenger airbag might deploy if someone was sitting down there. You understand? If there's a passenger on that seat, the two front airbag will deploy. So basically, this is why it is very important when you're in your vehicle to always use your seat belt, because if the driver driving the car is actually making use of his or her seat belt and you sitting down at the front, you are not making use of the seat belt, or if you are making use of the seat belt and the seat belt buckle switch, there's a switch in the buckle switch. If the switch is bad, you will notice from the dashboard the light will still be on even when you buckle the seat belt. In that kind of case, I would advise you actually get that light fixed immediately, because you will never know when you are going to need that features of that particular vehicle. So if the driver is making use of the seat belt and you are not making use of the seat belt, or you are making use of the seat belt and there's an issue with the seat belt buckle switch during a crash at the front of the vehicle, and it's so serious that the two front airbags need to deploy, you might be surprised that just the driver will be saved and you, the passenger, the airbag might not deploy to protect you. You understand? Because it senses the car. What the car senses is there's a driver, someone driving the car. You buckled your switch, you buckled your seat belt. The switch lights for the airbag is supposed to turn on, but you are not. You didn't buckle your seat belt. You didn't. Or if the switch is also bad, so it sees it now. Now it's a very tricky algorithm now for the SRS module to process at that time, because what it's trying to process is there's somebody sitting down on that seat, because it can sense a weight on that vehicle, but the seat belt is not on, so it's not sure if there's someone sitting down there or if you just put a luggage on the chair. So it's trying to decide at that point. So the best decision it could make is just to think that, okay, there's a luggage there, that is not human, I'm not supposed to protect that, because an object might not, or a luggage will not have a face, so it will just deploy just the driver airbag and leave you unprotected. So whenever you are driving your vehicle, please always ensure you use your seat belt. It's very important, and make sure even when using your seat belt, make sure the switch is working. It's very important. As small as it sounds, it's very important. And also, this can be for technicians outside there that after you walk around your center console, probably you take out the SRS module, or you have to take out the evaporator of the car. So in that process, maybe you need to take out the SRS module. You know, there's something funny that do happen sometimes. Probably from a particular module, you lose 6 bolts out of it, or when you are coupling the car or putting the car back together, you only find 4 or 3 or 5 bolts. For some module, you might just put it on it and feel okay, yeah, it's fine. But SRS module is not like that. You have to make sure it's fully secured. That module is very sensitive. You need to make sure it's fully secured. If it's one bolt you see, please look for the second bolt or go and purchase a new bolt. Just make sure it's very secure, especially when that car has not been involved in any crash and the SRS light is not on. If you didn't bolt that module well on the chassis, the likelihood of this same thing that happened in this video is surely going to happen, because when the driver gets on a rough road and the module flip or shakes, airbag will just deploy for no reason, and you'll be wondering why does that happen. So actually, this video of this guy is actually a very long and lengthy video. So I think along the line, after a while, he actually figured out what went wrong, and he was able to correct it.